Amigos de TechCetera, estamos con Bill Wright, director de Asuntos Gubernamentales y Alianzas Globales de Ciberseguridad de Symantec, y vamos a hablar un poquito de ciberseguridad con él. Entonces la entrevista es en inglés porque él es de los Estados Unidos y luego la estaremos traduciendo para todos ustedes. Hi Bill, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Symantec?
Sure. So my name is Bill Wright, and I've been with Symantec now for approximately a year and a half. Prior to this, I came from 18 years in the federal government. Started out at the U.S. Department of State, where I focused on counterterrorism. So counterterrorism has been my thrust for probably 10 years of my government career. It's a fairly natural migration, actually, to go from counterterrorism to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, like terrorism, you're often dealing with sometimes state-sponsored, sometimes not state-sponsored. No borders, no national borders. Just as terrorists don't recognize national borders, cyber criminals don't either. So for me, it was a natural progression. I think that cybersecurity and the fight against cyber criminals represents one of the biggest, if not the biggest, challenge that we'll face over the next 10 years. Symantec, as you may or may not be aware, is the largest security software company in the world. We are truly global. I think we have offices in 47 different countries. We are on the leading edge of security software. We work with consumers, we work with enterprises, we work with governments. My job within Symantec is within the government affairs shop, where I am director of cybersecurity partnerships. Symantec works with governments all around the world to help develop their cyber capacities. So this would include the development of their national strategies, helping them develop their legal regimes, of course helping them on the technical side. So that's basically my job now, and really enjoying it.
Okay, and you know, Colombia is one of those countries that, you know, is right in the middle of all this terrorism. Right now we have this hacker scandal going on. What can you tell us about what the government should be doing to improve security amongst its citizens?
Well, you know, I have heard of what has recently happened. I understand there's some conjecture and there could be some truth behind it, but what I can tell you very broadly is that not just governments, but also your enterprise and your basic consumers. First thing to do is identify what data you have that is most critical to you. Focus on that. We are now in a time when we are looking at defense in breadth. Meaning you don't put the same kind of security levels on every bit of your data. You need to focus on your, as I refer to it, as crown jewels, protect those first. Then I think, especially over the year that we had last year, I'm talking globally, with so many data breaches, I think that encryption is going to continue to play a larger role. So I would say strong encryption so that you can render that data useless if it is stolen. Archiving and data loss prevention tools, I think, play a very important role. And as far as policy goes, I think that you know, the governments should adopt cutting-edge technologies, but still be flexible enough to change with the cyber criminals. The problem is when you have a static policy. Policy always moves a lot slower than innovation, so you need to be able to maneuver within that. Lastly, I think that sharing of information, both from governments to their citizens, governments to governments, and then governments to sort of multinational fora, is extremely important. If there is a silver bullet in cybersecurity, I believe that it is the effective and timely sharing of threat information.
Okay, and the Colombian government is making a strong push on massifying broadband in this country. And one of the initiatives that we've heard about is that the government wants to provide cloud services to its citizens, sort of email and host all the government data that the citizens have. Should we be worried about the government hosting our information? Is that a good idea?
Well, I'd say that the government's heart is in the right place. With connectivity, I think it helps citizens in for social reasons, education reasons. A whole plethora of different advantages come with being connected to the internet. So the government getting involved in opening up access like that, I think, is very important. I'd say the downside is that the more access you provide, the more targets there are for possible cyber criminals, which is why I think a very good role for the government to play would be to raise the awareness of cybercrime and ways to defend against it. I think the government is uniquely positioned to have one of those awareness campaigns, and I think they are involved in one now. So I think that's a very good area to be, that they can sort of improve the resiliency as well as mitigate any sort of threats through that kind of awareness.
One of the topics that we touch recurrently in TechCetera is about this tension between convenience and security and privacy. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit about what you think is really, should we really be worried and relent our privacy for convenience, or should we worry about it? I don't know.
Yeah, I would say it's not an either or picture. In fact, you can't have privacy if you don't have security. They are interrelated. Having strong security and protecting your data is about the best thing you can do for your privacy. So I don't think it's a choice between the two. You need both.
Okay. So can you give us a little some stats on security in Latin America and Colombia, if you have any?
Yeah. So let me first speak, I guess, very broadly. Globally, cybercrime removes approximately $113 billion out of the global economy per year. Now, I've seen stats that are much higher than that, at the $1 trillion mark. I've seen stats that are lower than that, but I think everyone can agree that the amount is absolutely astounding. 50% of all internet users in the world have been a victim of cybercrime in the last year, which is pretty astounding. That's 1 million victims per day. You come down a little bit, so Latin America region is very, those trends continue to bear out. I can say with confidence that billions of dollars, possibly 10 billion, is removed from the economy in Latin America due to cybercrime. I believe 46% of online adults have been affected by cybercrime. It's particularly acute, I think, possibly here in Latin America and the Caribbean because of the high interconnectivity rate that you all are undergoing right now. You also, I believe, have the highest social media use of any place in the world, which is a primary target right now for cyber criminals. So all of those things very very concerning. Colombia in particular, I think, lost about $500 million last year due to cybercrime, and a lot of those trends of interconnectivity are particularly specific to Colombia. As more and more people come online with more devices, with more networks. While overall it is good, you are also developing more targets. For every household here in Colombia, there are now 3 devices connected to the internet. all of those are new potential targets for cyber criminals. Again, overall, this is a very good thing, the interconnectivity, but the awareness and the government policies need to coincide with those.
But okay. Have you interacted with the government? Who is your counterparty in our government? We have this strong ministry of ICT. So, do you know anyone there? Are they in contact with you?
So primarily, I've met through met Colombian officials, including people in the ICT ministry. I've met them through the OAS, the Organization of American States, FORA, which is a multinational body that represents all of South America and Latin America and the Caribbean. So primarily my interaction has been through them. I can say that all interactions I've had have been pretty positive. I think the Colombian government is certainly aware of some of the pending trends that are all pointing into higher connectivity, more users, more networks, and more potential crimes. They are trying to get ahead of it by doing a couple different things. They are trying to work on their national strategy, which they're ahead of in most countries in South America and Latin America. They're also engaging in some legal reform to help kind of identify what is cybercrime. I think they're also working within the government to identify hopefully a single point of contact that can have cyber as their, because I think it deserves to get that kind of treatment.
And one last question is, we are all users and we want to use our gadgets and our devices in our work, right? And so there is this movement about bring your own device to work. Right. But Colombian companies are all freaked out about the security and losing their information through those devices. Can you help us calm down these companies?
I don't know about calm them down, but let me just say but other countries are facing similar questions right now about bring your own device to work. The government is not wrong that when you begin commingling your work data with your personal data, you again are opening up additional attack vectors. And also, people treat their handheld devices and their tablets very differently than they do their laptop or their desktop. The truth is that people kind of get it now that you need a good password, you need some security software on your desktop and on your laptop. But when they look at their handheld device or their tablet, the same process doesn't occur. They don't recognize that actually is a very powerful computer, just as powerful as the desktops from 5 years ago, but they're not taking the same sort of precautionary measures. So to answer your question, I think the government should move slowly toward it and get the right sort of security policy in place, and there are ways that they can mitigate that threat.
Well, Bill, thanks for your time, and it was really interesting learning a little bit about cybersecurity. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.